Hey guys, welcome back to Good for the Soul. This is episode number 17. In this episode, I sit down with my friend, Kaleb Germany. He is a coach and black belt at Logic Jiujitsu in Spanaway, Washington. So, Kaleb and I think we met around blue belt. So we've been having some roles over the years at each different belt stage. I'm not a black belt yet, hopefully one day, but we've been training partners on and off for a long time, so it's really cool to sit down with a friend, talk jiu-jitsu. He's coaching a lot of the classes at Logic, and he's a big influence on the community. He's competed over the years, has some highlight reels on the Fight to Win, so he's done an awesome job. I think him and I met at Marcelo's headquarters, actually at Blue Belt, and that's where we started training because he was coming up. But I was in Seattle, and he was coming up on the weekends to train sometimes there, and then every now and then I would go down there. So, we've had some good roles over the years. It's been quite a fun time knowing him and some good training. So hopefully you guys get something out of the conversation because now he's taking a heavy coaching role as well. So really, I'm trying to get his perspective on how he does things now that he's in that position. You know, once you have that black belt around your waist, people look to you even more. So speaking to him about that, as you know, within the last year, at the time we record this, he had gotten his black belt, I believe. So that was cool, and I'm excited to share this conversation with you because he's an awesome guy, good friend, and those of you who've trained with him know he's a fun role as well. So before we jump into that, guys, I just want to remind you to go to jockofuel.com for all your supplement needs, the protein shakes, the superfoods, the krill oil, and again, that Jocko Joint Warfare has the turmeric, curcumin, all that other stuff that is good for your joint health. I take it all the time. Us as jiu-jitsu practitioners or anyone in the fitness world can benefit from it. So go to jockofuel.com, get yourself 10% off, and use the code Good for the Soul at checkout, right? So without further ado, let's jump in this episode with Kaleb Germany. I appreciate you sitting down with me, man.
Hell yeah.
We've known each other for a long time, not necessarily main training partners, but we've been in the same vicinity. And at Blue Belt we trained together, at Purple Belt we did, Brown Belt, and now you got your Black Belt, so it's fun to sit down and talk jiu-jitsu with you, man. I appreciate it.
Hell yeah.
So talking about, you're coaching now here at Logic. You've been doing it for a while, but from the beginning, where did your love for jiu-jitsu come from?
Mine started actually, I kind of just fell into it actually.
Okay.
I trained, I was doing wrestling. I was doing wrestling in high school, and then after I graduated, I kind of just fell out of all like sports and stuff like that. And then one day, I want to move back here. I was in Texas at the time. I moved back here, and I was like, I want to do something, but I'm not a weightlifting guy. I don't like going to the gym, so I was like, I'll try wrestling. So I found a wrestling club, and it was with James Johnson. He's you know James.
Yep.
He's the owner of Cat 5 in Lakewood, and he had me started wrestling. At the time we were at a team in Tacoma, and he was just like, I was just wrestling with him, and then a couple weeks went by, and then one of the days he's like, you want to stay after class for jiu-jitsu? I was like, yeah, sure. And it's pretty much been that way since. I kind of quit doing wrestling. I just stuck with jiu-jitsu. I liked it a lot more.
Did you know what jiu-jitsu was prior to being at that gym? So maybe when you were wrestling in high school, like, had you heard it yet?
Kind of, not really. I would say because when I was wrestling, a lot of my friends my training partners were judo guys, so it's kind of similar. But I didn't really know jiu-jitsu. But I watched UFC a little bit.
Okay.
But I didn't really dive into any of the jiu-jitsu part.
Yeah.
But definitely, I knew what judo was because I was constantly getting thrown by the judo guys in the wrestling room, and I was like, God damn, what the hell are they doing? And then I want to say I really started understanding it a little bit when I started training at that gym and kind of just watching after class.
Gotcha.
I did do one random jiu-jitsu class in Texas, randomly, but I was just watching these two dudes. They were just rolling at the at the gym, and they were just sparring. They were practicing or whatever at a on base thing. So,
okay.
So hey, can I train with you guys? And they were, yeah, sure. And they were super nice, which was really cool. Just letting some random dude just come train with them out of nowhere, which was pretty I was like, oh, well, that's pretty coul. But
when you say on base, were you in the military?
No, my mom.
Oh, okay.
So when I was 18, 19, that's when I kind of tried it out for the first time. When I just went on base to work out one day, and then
Gotcha.
And then I kind of just, I saw these guys rolling around in the gym on the side, and I was like, hey, what are you guys doing? And they're like, oh, we're just getting ready for a tournament.
Right.
Because I wanted to wrestle. I was like, oh, can I wrestle with you guys a little bit? And they're like, yeah, sure. And I rolled with them for 5 minutes. I didn't really last very long.
Yeah, of course. If you don't know jiu-jitsu,
Yeah, no.
we know that.
Yeah,
So maybe that entry into combat sports per se was wrestling for you. Where did your passion for that come from? Maybe what drew you into that? And again, trying to draw people into jiu-jitsu, how did you make that leap from either never having done it and then getting into this as like, dang, this is something I enjoy?
Right. It's funny, actually. I started wrestling my sophomore year in high school, so pretty late. And there was no real, I need to do this. It was just like, I was really small, and I kind of wanted to get tougher. Because when I was in high school, I was really soft and small, and I was like, and my best friend wrestled, and he was on the team. He's like, just do wrestling. I was like, and there's that stigma, like, oh, they're whack, they're lame. Like, go do football, go do basketball.
That's why I didn't wrestle, for that same stigma.
Yeah, so I ended up, I was like, I just do it, and I did it. I didn't love it, but it was I enjoyed, you get a weird camaraderie, when you're training with just a bunch of people training hard. So that's probably what drew me in more. I didn't really care for the wrestling part. I just liked the camaraderie that came with it, talking trash in the locker rooms, and just wrestling hard, sprints and stuff like that. So didn't enjoy it, but it definitely made me feel kind of comfortable and I belonged somewhere for a little bit. And then after that, then I kind of wanted that sense of camaraderie again. I think that's kind of what got me back to wrestling again outside of high school.
Cool. So as you started to find jiu-jitsu, what was that progression like? You found that gym in Lakewood, I believe you said?
Tacoma, yeah.
Tacoma area, yep. So what was that like now deciding, hey, I'm going to be a white belt at this. I see this as something I like. What was that progression like for you that first 6 months of jiu-jitsu?
Oh, it was terrible. I got smashed. So my training partners were a bunch of a couple professional fighters. James Johnson, who's a Greco, I think he took second in the nation. And then Chuck Seiler, shout out to Chuck. He was Marcelo's brown belt at the time, and one of Marcelo's better brown belts from what I've heard. And they were just put it on me bad when because I was a wrestler. I was super tense, and I was the classic white belt wrestler. Okay. So I went intense, and there's actually a funny story of when I first. It's not funny. It's kind of embarrassing, but
tell me.
When I went, there was this one day I was training with this lady, and she, my coach was like, hey, go nice, and I was like, okay, cool, yeah, I'll definitely go nice, and then and I was going nice, and I think she ended up crying, or she just got really down, and so. We didn't share any words after that. She kind of just went away. I didn't even recognize it. And so my coach called me over, Chuck. He's like, "Hey, Kaleb, let's roll." And I was like, "Okay, cool, yeah, let's roll." And then for I think within 3 minutes, he just brutalized me for 10, 15 subs, and they were the quick ones, oh, you scream tap real fast, and he's kind of let me know. He's like, yeah, and I wasn't even going that hard. I was going easy for you, but you see the difference, you're easy and then my easy kind of different. So, and then he actually made me roll with my eyes closed for 6 months straight, which actually helped a lot.
Wow.
It slowed me down, kind of calmed me down, and forced me to be more not methodical, but just more relaxed, I guess. Because if you're freaking out when your eyes are closed, something's gonna happen.
Of course. Maybe jumping forward, and then we'll get back to that time frame. As a coach, that lesson you learned at that time, maybe rolling too hard with women on the mat. How do you explain that to one, women being more comfortable to be able to walk through the gym, and maybe when you see it kind of happening on the mat, how do you handle that?
I think the first thing is I don't force people to roll. If you don't want to roll, you don't have to. And I think that's a big when someone walks in the gym and they're you can roll, you got to roll with this guy. And if they don't want to roll, they don't have to roll. Especially when they're paying you for a service, you can't really force them to do something like that. But then after once they get kind of comfortable, first off we start with sparring with experienced people. So it'll be me or some of the other coaches here or people that I kind of trust to be more not controlling, but they have really good awareness of what's going on. Because when you're rolling with newer people, you got a lot to deal with. You got to deal with the way that they act, the way that you act, the people around you. How can you control all those scenarios? And then also making it sure it's not just them getting smashed the whole time. And especially for the ladies, it's hard to come out on the mats. I realize that a lot. It's just you see a lady walking in, the first thing they do is this. They kind of get because they see a bunch of people just going hard, and they're expecting they don't get a choice on who their partner is and
Gotcha.
things like that. So like there's like, oh, what if I get stuck with this giant dude over here? And
Right.
he just smashed me to the ground. So
Gotcha.
And then after that, like I kind of just ease them into it, and then I have actually a really couple of good ladies that help me out too, and I think that process helps a lot too. Is like shout out to Priya and Kim. They kind of help get people more comfortable getting on the mats, and then obviously the ladies class.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
probably like I always recommend the ladies class first. I'm like, hey, if you guys are thinking about it, check out the ladies class first, just to kind of create that comfortability, right? So
Yep.
once they're more comfortable, some ladies come over and then they're like, oh, cool, yeah, this is not as bad as I thought it was, and then you kind of go from there.
Cool. No, that's great. And we'll get more into that, but you just brought up that situation. So kind of jumping back to that time frame, and maybe just for a little bit of the history of jiu-jitsu, of what we witness as white belts, because I think you started training probably about 10 years ago.
7 years.
7?
Yeah.
Okay.
7 years, man. Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. So when you were a white belt, who was around? Who were the black belts, under the lineage, kind of mentoring you? What was their training like? What were you seeing as jiu-jitsu as a white belt?
Yeah, so mostly around me, it was a lot of the Marcelo black belts, and Marcelo is pretty prominent up in the Pacific Northwest. So I was mainly with Ollie. A lot of my first couple months was with Chuck, and then Ollie Tiglau is one of his black belts, and I trained with him for I think a year and a half, and then he brought me over to Pinnacle with Wally. But just mainly those two guys were the main guys that I trained with until kind of as like my instructors, and Marcelo obviously too up in Seattle. Those three guys kind of paved the way for how to train, and how to. I got a good like variety from those three guys because they're all kind of different. They have all their own different backgrounds, right? So and then obviously I have my training partners and things like that as well.
Cool.
Like the higher belts when I was around, like Kyle Mitchell and things like that. That kind of Nick Ryan. Those older generations kind of help me out too.
Cool. When you explain jiu-jitsu to someone who doesn't know what it is, because again, you've been training for a while, you're coaching now, to excite them about the sport that we love so much, what do you tell them what jiu-jitsu is?
That's a hard one, but like I think it's like a puzzle. But like I was like honestly, like if I see someone interested in it, I'd be like, it's just wrestling with submissions. That's it.
Okay.
But if I had to break it down, and it's much more methodical. Like it's surprisingly, it uses your brain a lot more than you would think. Like a lot of people that have success in this sport are very smart, right? Michael Musumeci is like a prime example. He's very smart. And then it's kind of like fits that stigma of like jiu-jitsu, not stigma, but the stereotype of like the dorky looking guys being the most dangerous. So
Definitely.
Like it's surprisingly like step by step you can break someone down and kind of. It's like playing Rubik's Cube underwater with whatever.
Yep.
So
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's definitely confusing. If I had to pull someone in, I was like, you'll never get bored. Like for instance, like some things, like for me, like I would get bored just throwing a jab over and over. No shout outs to boxing or anything like that, but I just perfection. You just perfection that jab and stuff like that. And with jiu-jitsu, you kind of just do whatever you want, and then like if you do something stupid, you get punished for it. And if you do something good, then I'll keep that in the socket for shooting later, right?
Cool.
So.
Yeah. No, definitely. As you started progressing in your jiu-jitsu career, let's talk about that blue belt phase. What was that like for you? This is kind of a three-parter. What was blue belt like for you? How did you make it past blue belt? Because we know the blue belt blues being a stereotype about jiu-jitsu, and then how do we keep people training on the mat for longer? So that was a three-parter right there.
The blue belt. Okay, so let's start with, for me, the blue belt was, I hit the wall first really early. So I had a very successful like end of my white belt career, right? The 4 stripes and all that stuff. Very successful. I felt comfortable being a white belt at that time. And then when I got my blue belt, I just hit the wall again. I got smashed constantly. It just kind of leveled up and you just get smashed.
What do you think that is?
I just think that it's just a skill, right? That you run into the people who have been training blue belts longer, and it's just like every single time you level up, there's just a different type of mentality. So when you're a competitor, it's mainly just the competitors, not like so much in the gym, but just when you're a competitor, when you get to that next level, it's just there's people that have been there a little bit longer and they have that time in. So and it literally that's all it is in jiu-jitsu is just time. Like how do you spend your time? And so when I first had that happen, yeah, I ran into that wall, got smashed. Luckily, it didn't deter me too much because back in my wrestling days, I also lost, I think, almost every single match except for one. So it didn't really deter me too much. So
you knew about the grind.
Yeah, I didn't let it. It just didn't bother me as much as I thought it would. It bothered me much less in jiu-jitsu. I was like, oh, like just now, like it was just for fun. Like it wasn't like my life or anything like that. So I was like, man, it's just for fun.
Let's talk about that mindset real quick before we get to those other questions, because you bring up a very interesting point that I think maybe deters people from jiu-jitsu sometimes, where they do get very bothered from the experiences that you're talking about, right? Constantly being pressured, and when you level up, you kind of get brought down again because people see that fresh belt, like, oh, now we can roll harder with that person. So what was it about your mindset, and maybe how did you kind of overcome that?
I think it was just like, it was a very like there was a point I remember I just don't care. I was like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm just gonna have fun. In the gym, I did feel a lot of pressure competing, but in the gym itself, like when I would never like stop training. Because I was like, oh, this is just fun. Like, and then I also had like a good group around me, like, so they made it fun. Like, they would talk, like, I like talking trash, so a lot of my friends talk trash, and it kind of made it easy for me to do,
Cool.
You talk trash with me too.
Absolutely. So, we have plenty of fun.
So but yeah, I just like talking trash, and so that helped me a lot. Like it kept me around easy. Like, it made those bad days less bad. Like when you get, like when you're the nail and you're just getting smashed over and over, they talk a little bit, like whisper in your ear while they're getting subbed, and like, you're like, all right, dude, get off me. But it kept it fun, right?
Cool. So getting back to that blue belt phase, right? We talked about how, you were getting smashed again, but you just kind of loved it for the fun of it.
Yeah.
How do we keep people on the mats when they hit their wall at blue belt for longer, and how do we crush the blue belt blues?
I think that's kind of like a mix between like the person as a coach, and then and then the person themselves, right? So it's like my job to like notice when people are hitting a wall, and you'll see that a lot when they come in, they're dragging, like, comparatively, like sometimes you can kind of tell when people are coming to the gym consistently with like just like they're forced to come in, they're making it a chore rather than a hobby.
Gotcha.
So like that's a big problem I have with the kids, but we can talk about it a little bit later. But it's kind of like you can see them dragging themselves in instead of like, oh, dude, let's go, like let's go training and stuff like that. So, and that's me like, hey, dude, you should probably take a couple days off, relax. Because some people think it's just like, when I say like take a couple days off, maybe you don't have to roll every day, or sometimes you're just drilling. And then as them, it's kind of like an internal battle too, right? So sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Sometimes it's just one of those things where at the end of the day, it is hopefully, at the end of the day, it's a hobby for everybody who trains, but some people do it as a job, but most people do it as a hobby, and it should be like, you never put those kind of, for some reason, people put that hard pressure on just jiu-jitsu as a hobby. Like, no one would get that stressed out about cooking, right, or making, playing games or something. Like, they would never put that self-stress or that self-pressure on them, but for some reason jiu-jitsu, because it is a...
Why do you think that is?
Ego. I think it's not egotistical. It's an ego. Everyone has an ego, by the way, whether you want to admit it or not. Most people have an ego at some point. I've met one guy, I don't think he has an ego, and it was one of my students, and he brought his like 14-year-old, his 14-year-old was just smashing. He was just laughing the whole time, like, oh, he's getting smashed subbed, and he didn't care. It was awesome. But yeah, so I think it's just like one of those things where it's a battle for your ego. Like, you got to realize you got to let it go. I still have an ego, and I'm a black belt, and so and luckily it's like it's not that bad. It's just one of those things where sometimes I go a little bit harder with my buddies. Like when we talk trash, we're like, all right, let's go hard, let's do it. Yeah. Instead of just being like, whatever.
Definitely.
But yeah, so I think like that's the like the biggest hurdle is like that ego. When you come in and get smashed and it kind of breaks you down, whittles you down, So,
as a coach, what is maybe the first or biggest reason when people come to you and say, hey, I think I'm gonna take some either time away from the mats or stop training jiu-jitsu? What reasons stick out to you?
As a fresh gym, I haven't run into too many problems. Right now, we have a good crew, but I think like the most thing is a big thing right now is moving. A lot of people are moving. A lot of people move a lot, and that's a lot. But for those people that are sticking around that just kind of quit, I think we failed them as capturing their attention and getting their attention, because they did seem interested at first, and keeping that attention, which does happen. Some people slip through your fingers, especially if I'm like not on my game every single day.
Yeah.
People slip through your fingers because you weren't on it that day, and maybe they just wanted that extra little push. So, or just like maybe it just wasn't for them. And that's the kind of like the hard part about it, is like there's no way to tell until you do it. You just keep coming, and they're like, oh, maybe I don't like this as much. But I do think like it's a big part of my job is to keep people entertained, have them interested, and keep it fun. Keep people motivated, right? Don't just like showing the same thing over and over and over, and then never showing something new. Leading by example, right? A lot of people like leaders. Steven competes a lot. I'm took a kind of a health break right now, but Steven's been leading the way right now, and I think they like kind of seeing that, so that helps keep certain people around. And it kind of just like a lot of different random things, right? But keeping everything like kind of relaxed, I think helps a lot. What's the biggest thing though? I don't know. I haven't had too many injuries lately, like no serious injuries keep us away, so crossing my fingers, knocking on wood if I had it. But realistically, like, I think a lot of it is just like they just don't like it, and which is fair. Like some people might not like it, and that's just how it goes sometimes. I think of like math and like writing, right? Some people like math and hate writing, and some people hate math and like writing, right? So I think that's a big part of it. And I think it's growing bigger too now, and it's not as it's becoming more mainstream and stuff. That helps
definitely
a lot as well.
No, that totally makes sense. You brought up a very interesting point of if you as a coach are on your game completely. What is maybe something that maybe when you recognize that in the moment when you are coaching or about to step on those mats, how do you maybe get your own self out of the funk, being one of the primary coaches at this gym and one of the leaders of this gym, on how to do your best for your students?
Yeah, I like to play music. That's my thing. Like I'll put, if I turn on some jams, either I'm already in a good mood or I'm putting myself in a good mood, right? So I'll put on some of that funk music, and I'll just kind of dance a little bit, and then
I saw that today. That was good. I enjoyed it. It brought the whole mood of the whole place up. It was awesome.
Shout out to Micah B for the playlist. But yeah, no, so, I think like music helps me a lot. Because I'm working all day, and then I come here, and then I'm not bored of jiu-jitsu, but I'm just like already tired by the end of the day. It's kind of like when you get to that last part, and you're like, oh, I got a couple more hours of. So I just got to kind of make sure that I kind of boost my levels. Sometimes I'll eat some chocolate, get my sugar high, and then. But yeah, I mean, once I'm in here, I kind of just being here kind of funnels that back for me itself. Cool. The first like 5-10 minutes, I'm like, oh, all right, let's go. Luckily, I had the kids kind of pump me up with their enthusiasm and energy, so that's like the first part of the day.
You got some fiery kids in here. Big kids class. It was really cool to see.
Yep.
Big kids class.
I think it was like 20 people today, so it's not too bad. I can't complain. Yeah, those big classes get pretty intense, and then I really have to be on my game there. So kids and adults are totally different.
Talking about that difference between coaching kids and a very prominent kids class, right? You maybe have 30 kids in here versus coaching adults. Obviously, we know the intellect and maturity is going to be a little different, but what, as a coach in jiu-jitsu, what are those differences?
Where should we start? For one, like I treat my kids like adults for the advanced kids compared to the beginners, like the newer kids, like the younger ones. I let them kind of like we make the techniques basic and very easy and much more entertaining more than applicable, right? So I ease them into the jiu-jitsu first. We ease them into it, and then we make it like more applicable as far as technique goes. But then, as far as the adults, we'll just slam into it. Let's go. Let's get into it. Shrimps, all that good stuff. The arm bars, guard pull, all that good stuff. We just kind of dive in. I tell the adults, you just kind of got to get into it. With the kids, we can start off with easier stuff. We break down things into more steps to make it easier. Even if it's just a break fall, we break it down, make it a game, something like that. Just keep it more fun for them. Because one, they most likely aren't the ones who are deciding to come to jiu-jitsu, because not most kids know what jiu-jitsu is in Washington.
Right.
It's not like it's not like well known here. So most likely it's the parents asking to put them into jiu-jitsu. So some kids don't even want to be here, so making it more fun for them as well. And then as far as going like teaching them, I just treat them like adults for the most part. Sometimes I have problems with keeping kids' attention.
Yeah.
So
that's gonna be like any teacher.
Yeah.
They're gonna be a little more energetic.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, if they're focused, I mean, if they're not distracting others and they're just on the mats, like not paying attention, and the parents are okay with it. Some parents like for their kids to just be on the mats. And he's like, if you're willing to put the time in, they'll eventually start training a little bit more. And so some parents just put their kids on the mat, and as long as they're not distracting or being like a danger or anything, it doesn't bother me at all. And then they'll just kind of hang out there. And then eventually they'll start training, and then all of a sudden now they're training. So whether it's 3 months, 6 months, in a year, so kind of works out.
No, I have to commend you on the job you do coaching the kids class. I mean, you commanded that room very well. The technique was awesome. They're moving, the way you explain the drills, and then you're walking the room. I mean, it was done really well, man. I'm proud of you as a friend to see that happen in person. It was really cool.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah. So where you did?
So I got lucky. I have a lot of people helping me out too. That's really, really helpful. Like when you have those big classes like that. Today it was kind of easier because I have the advanced kids. So with the advanced kids, I don't need as much help because I kind of just like tell them, go do this. I'll show them the move, and then I'm like, go do this, and then I'll come around and correct the details. Cool. But yeah, sometimes I do have those guys helping me out, like Steven, Priya, Kim, some of the adults helping out too. So that really does help, especially with those bigger classes, because realistically, I can't make it to 30 people and actually improve their technique, right? So.
It was cool to see. And when you had them doing push-ups, they knew they deserved those push-ups.
Yep.
So that was good.
Every now and then they get those push-ups, just to remind them.
Absolutely. You said a lot of times the kids in Washington don't even know what jiu-jitsu is. The parents are bringing them in to give it a shot. Have you had those situations on the other end where the kids are doing jiu-jitsu, the parents are standing by and they don't train, and maybe it pulls them in to start jiu-jitsu? Yeah,
so I think I've only had one kid say I know what jiu-jitsu is, and I think I've only had like one or two kids that say they knew what jiu-jitsu is on like YouTube or something. That I don't know if it was because they were watching like, I think it was like one of them was like a Ronda Rousey fan, and then she dived into the rabbit hole, and then she got her parents to bring her in or something like that. And then I think the other one is similar situation. They just kind of found it. I think it was like, again, YouTube or something like that. I mean, that's really realistically the only place you're going to find jiu-jitsu is YouTube, unless you have like a Flow grappling account, which you don't have unless you know what jiu-jitsu is.
Right.
But yeah, besides that, I have a lot of parents that don't train and their kids train. I have a lot of parents that train with and their kids train as well. So there is a good mix. I always try to nudge those parents in and try it out a little bit at least to kind of get the vibe for it, because it is different, right? And I'm very desensitized to jiu-jitsu as far as like how intense it is sometimes. So for the kids, I kind of gotta fall back and remind myself, they're still fighting. Like at the end of the day, you're teaching a kid how to fight. Yeah. And so sometimes they get desensitized to it. So I know the parents are probably not understanding on how intense some of these things are. Sometimes you'll see a kid struggling to get out of side control, and you see your parents go, "Get up, let's go."
Right.
Well, they can't go because the person's holding them down. So it is kind of a fun a fun little angle to see. Try to get those parents in there and see them struggle and be like, "Oh, it's
a little different." Would you have any salesy pitch for those parents? Like, hey, your kids are doing, like, how can we get you on the mats? What would be your first go-to?
My first go-to is always. One day they're gonna choke you, and they're gonna beat you in a fight, and then they're gonna be like, oh well, now, and then it's gonna be too late to do jiu-jitsu. So
that's fair.
That's generally and then I guess a lot of kids practice their rear naked chokes on their parents anyway. So
yeah, that's fair. What is something positive that you're seeing as a coach on the jiu-jitsu mats?
As far as my students?
Yeah, as far as your students, or maybe just on the mats in general, whether it's attitude, technique-wise. What is something you like seeing as a coach?
For me, I like the environment and people like making it as nice as possible, or not nice as possible, but like and making sure like everyone's enjoying their time there, right? Yeah. So that's a big thing for like the kids. Like I said, some kids just flat out don't want to be there, and it's not their choice. It's at the end of the day, it's their parents' choice, and so making it fun for them. I talk trash a lot, like I said, but I am like kind of observant of my audience and who I'm like. I wouldn't talk trash to the kids, but I also wouldn't talk trash to a brand new person who just showed up and I have no kind of understanding of how they act. But just like when everybody's kind of just like enjoying their time around, like I try to keep like as loose vibe as possible.
Cool.
And
That's
like
great.
I think that's like the best part for me is like when everybody's kind of enjoying themselves, you know. So
What is a negative aspect that you see?
negative aspect I see is a lot. I guess the biggest one too is the ego checks, and
Okay.
the ego checks are a hard one.
Give me maybe a specific example of how that plays itself out on the mats and negativity that you see.
So let's just say I have a really good 17-year-old blue belt just come in, or he's here training with me, and then an adult man comes in, and you know he sees him and he goes really hard, and then all of a sudden like now it puts like a weird vibe all of a sudden into the gym.
Explain that a little more for me. You're saying 17-year-old blue belt in jiu-jitsu, training, good training partner, good kid, and then you have an adult blue belt, white belt,
Just
whomever.
a white belt. It could be just a white. It could be a blue belt too.
And you're saying they're rolling, and then what happens?
It just starts getting more intense, and there's not really any. You can see like maybe the 16-year-old or 17-year-old, or just anybody who's you wouldn't expect to like tap you out starts tapping you out, and then they get that like, why is this guy tapping me out? Why is this 16-year-old tapping me out? Or why is this lady tapping me out? Right? And then you start seeing them go like do things like start getting a little cheeky with the elbows and stuff like that. And then it kind of puts a weird vibe in there, and then you got to send the mat enforcer or talk to them depending on how intense it was, right? Yeah. Sometimes if it's not too bad, or if you see that person wasn't really doing it intentionally, it's
What is your conversation with that individual like when you see it? If it has crossed that line where you now need to approach that person, what are those like when you have them?
I actually don't know yet. I've never had to cross that line, luckily.
Okay.
And I mean, luckily I've always had people that seem, for the most part, very nice. But it would be just one of those conversations where it's just like, hey man, you went a little hard. We do need to slow down. We're not trying to hurt each other or anything like that. Obviously you got to hear their case too. Like maybe I didn't see something, right?
Yeah.
Maybe my 16-year-old blue belt was being a jerk. So, but it's just really, I've never actually been in that case, and I'm actually hoping I never have to, because I don't have the. I don't know if I have the answer for that, because I've probably been in that position as well, where I didn't notice I was being, like I have been in that position obviously, where I didn't know I was going too hard.
Yeah, you explained it to us earlier.
So.
No, I hear it. Throughout your progression of jiu-jitsu, you know, getting to you specifically, what is your game and why is it your game?
As far as my technique?
Yeah, as far as your technique on the mats, what do you like to do and why is it your game?
Find a way to your back and choke you out. That's my game. I like a lot of that fancy stuff, rolling, jumping, flying. I do like a lot of pressure. I'm kind of like what's it called? I like when I make people suffer a little bit before I do my next thing. So I'll put a little bit of pressure there. I like really putting a lot of control. Like I just want to I want to make you quit. I like making people quit prior to the submission, so it makes my submissions easier. I think this seems like it's a little sadistic, but it makes me feel confident in my technique along the way, right? So if I make you quit along the way to my submission, then my submission will be that much safer and easier to do.
Absolutely.
So, but my game is definitely I'll pull guard, I'll take down. It depends on how I'm feeling that day. But I definitely like to find my way to the back and finish with a choke to end it, kind of.
Yeah, for sure. You were talking, you liked that fancy stuff. Obviously, you know I was going to bring it up. You had that flow grappling highlight.
I did, yeah.
Which was awesome. As one of your homies up here and seeing that happen live, I was like, oh my God, that was sick. It was a great finish. What was that like competing on that stage and kind of having that video go viral in the jiu-jitsu world? What was that like?
It was weird, man, because you get all those random Instagram follows on your Instagram. Like you just get a split, and then you get like tagged and everything, and then it gets shared on all those like jiu-jitsu jiu-jitsu Instagram pages. It was cool. It was weird though, because like it just dies. Like there's no. It's like you're cool for a second, and then boom. Yeah. Which is, it's not the wrong thing, but it's just like it's like everyone's like, oh, dude, that's crazy, and then it's like nothing, and you're just like, aw. Yeah. But no, it was cool.
For those who haven't seen it, tell us, walk us through what it was, and then also, had you drilled and been practiced that and maybe been expecting that before?
No. So what it was like a rolling Kimura from the guy pulling guard. I hit a rolling Kimura, and then I got into like a reverse triangle with the Kimura still locked in. So I had like kind of a triple attack with the Kimura, straight arm bar, wrist lock, and a triangle, kind of teetered in there. And I had a straight armbar, I believe, as well. Or not straight armbar. Straight armbar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, so I've never practiced that before. I just remember like before the match, it's like if this kid sits down, I'm throwing something flashy. Because I love Seth Daniels, and he always tells me like I'll bring you on if you do crazy stuff. So I was like, all right, cool. I'll just keep throwing crazy stuff. And I knew if the guy sat down, I was gonna throw something. I didn't know what it was. It might have been a triangle another day, but that day it was just a rolling Kimura. I don't know.
Yeah.
I kind of tested the waters out a little bit before I grabbed his arm and then see what he did off of that. So
cool.
That kind of helped set it up. But no, I don't think I've ever drilled that ever. I can never think of a time when I did rolling.
Man, that's all. I think that makes it that much more epic. And then again, as one of your homies, just seeing that happen when I was watching that match, I was just super stoked for you.
Oh, dude.
What is maybe the antithesis of your jiu-jitsu? What works against you and something that you need to kind of work through?
Oh, long, lanky guys. Long, lanky people. Yeah.
Like, I didn't know.
Yeah, lanky people are my.
Why is that?
I don't know. I'm still working on it.
Okay.
I think it's because I do rely a lot on closing the distance. And so that's really helped me with my passing lately. Actually, I've been relying a lot on closing distance with just speed and like just angles and speed. That's it. Not really making sure I isolate things more before I attack. So yeah, man. I think most of my submission losses are all like triangles. Actually, like most of them recently I've been getting triangled over and over, and I'm like, I need to work, because I always, like, when I'm passing, I change the angle, or I go fast, change the angle, and I'm also giving him an angle to throw a triangle, and not because I wasn't isolating a leg or something like that. So I really got to work on. I have a lot to work on, but like that mainly is like my biggest problem right now is I leave myself open a lot against the longer guys. With the smaller or the stockier people, it's a little bit easier for me to maintain my current game as it is. But the longer, lanky guys, they seem to find those little holes. Flexible guys too are I just can't deal with them sometimes. It's like their legs are just always in there. So working new things in to get past that stuff pretty much. But
cool.
The long, lanky guys are my bane.
Yeah. Well, let's get some more of them in here to mess with this guy a little bit. Again, we've been talking about your progression through jiu-jitsu. When someone walks through that door for the first time, or maybe they've been here for a year, how do you maybe explain to them how they're gonna find their way in jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, so basically, like, first off, like when I teach a technique, it's pretty much like kind of how I treat all of it is like I'm gonna show you like the steps that I think are correct for these reasons, and then obviously speed and strength beat all. Like if you're strong enough, you can beat all that rules, and then technique or speed, you can beat all those rules, right? But I kind of just like I tell them like it's kind of your guys' picture. I just kind of give you guys the drawing, you paint it in however you want. So like for instance, like I don't think I'm ever gonna show a rolling Kimura drill. Like we're not even gonna do rolling Kimuras, right? But I'll show you guys how to do like Kimura setups and all that good stuff. And then hopefully they kind of see those pictures when they're rolling or doing like flows and stuff like that. But pretty much explaining to them like it's kind of like that's kind of the cool part about it too is like you get to kind of create whatever you want out of this, right? Yeah. And then you'll see the very successful people have created like their own game that's never been seen before. So just kind of telling like I'll show you guys these things and these are the reasons why we do them. And then after you do that, it's kind of up to you on how you want to like if for instance like if you're a 250-pound dude throwing triangles on bottom, like that's insane. Like keep doing it, right? But I'll show you how to do a normal triangle, and you go off of how you can finish from there, kind of. Cool. But keeping it kind of up to them.
Again, the goal being to try to excite people about jiu-jitsu, bring more people into the sport that we love so much. Maybe some personal benefits as well as what you hear from other people about why people should train jiu-jitsu. What benefits off of the mats does it give us?
For me personally, the biggest one is like I'm much more calmer off the mats than I've ever been before. So like, for instance, like when I'm driving, like if I get cut off, I'm like, all right, whatever, dude. Like in the past, I would have been like, oh fuck you and all that stuff. So I would definitely be like, or I would start honking or flashing my highlights a lot. But that's like the biggest thing for me is like I'm much more calmer off the mats now because like realistically, nothing's worse than getting choked like repeatedly over and over and over, simulating death, right? So when you get on the road, it's just like I'm just much more calmer in most situations, not even like dangerous situations, but I'm just like I don't react like I would have prior
in
to
the
that.
normal day-to-day is what you're kind of describing. Yeah.
I wouldn't, like, if someone bothered me, I was like, that's not my problem, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then I just feel more safe. Like, I feel safer, like, and that's a weird thing to say, like, I feel safer. Like, I just feel more comfortable being around more people. Like, sometimes I used to be, like, nervous being around a bunch of people. I'm like, oh, dude, what if this guy decides to beat me up all of a sudden? So, not that I feel like I can win a lot more fights. I just feel more comfortable with who, like, I feel like I can handle more now just because I trained more. And then there's also just, like, when you come here and you burn yourself out, you kind of just get to relax that night. So those kind of things, like, I think are the biggest, like, things for me outside of the gym. Is like, it helps me keep my mental, because my mind is always running. So when I burn myself out, it kind of just silences it for me. So that really helps.
Have you seen the growth of maybe one or two of your students that have that confidence, or whatever, whoever they were when they walked through that door to wherever they're at now, maybe a year or two after you guys have been in this location? Have you seen some of your students grow? Yeah,
definitely. I'm going to shout out to Keith and Alex. So those are those two blue belts that were going wild over there.
Yeah, talk to me about it. What was their demeanor that day one and then now?
So I'll pick on Keith a little bit. He was very shy, very not hesitant. He's very hesitant. He won't, like, he'll look down a lot. He'll kind of not finish his sentences if he feels like it's incorrect or something. He just gets very nervous very fast, and I don't know at what point, but he seems to be much more comfortable just being around people and things like that. And even when he's training, you can see the difference in his training. Like, he's much more confident in what he's doing. I think he just built, like, the confidence through jiu-jitsu. Like, he just built that confidence to do other stuff, right? So he just has that confidence to go and actually, like, approach whatever it is, whether it's talking to people or sparring with random people. Like, sometimes you'll see Keith go grab the biggest deal. I'm like, oh, all right, well, go ahead, dude. But so he has that confidence in himself to kind of do that stuff where he might not have had it before. And especially in his rolling, he'll go for things more because he's more confident in it, instead of just kind of shying away from things.
Cool.
But yeah, Keith, and then Alex. Alex is definitely a beast too. So.
That's awesome. I like hearing that, because we've seen it a lot, right? Probably it happened to us. I remember it personally, but didn't get to see it from the outside. So I'm sure as a coach, seeing that complete 180 as an individual has to be rewarding for you.
Oh yeah, man, it feels good. It feels good. And then obviously the kids are the ones you really see, man. You see the kids kind of switch, whether they were super shy, they're not aggressive, or they're too aggressive, and you got to tone them down. And so that's where you really see, like, the big changes really fast with those kids. That's definitely where you see that.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. If you could change one thing overall about jiu-jitsu, what would it be?
Overall, what would I change about jiu-jitsu? I don't know. I think, like, I guess the biggest thing I would change, I would say, like, it's kind of changing already, but the stigma of, like, cross-training, that has always been a weird thing for me. But I think with, like, obviously social media kind of, I think social media is the cause of what kind of killed all that cross-training stigma, because you can just go look at everything now. You can go find an answer to all your problems online. And so the stigma of, like, cross-training and rivalries and things like that. I think like the cross training is, like, the most important thing that has helped me in my progression by far. Like, I would train everywhere as much as I could, and that I think that definitely helped me out a lot, because some teams play like a totally different game, right? So, and that kind of, like, when I go to a tournament, I just go get smashed by the game. Like, I've never drilled that, so I don't know how to address it, or I don't roll with people that do that, so I don't know how to address it. So when I go to those open mats and I have friends all over that, like, watching that, like, that'll help me out with my game. So that really, I think the stigma of, like cross training is, like, the craziest thing to me.
Yeah. Why do you where did that stigma come from, in your opinion?
I just think, like, it came from competition, right? So, like, if you had, like, the secret to beat, like, you had a really, like, flawless technique to beat somebody, you wouldn't want them to know about it. So, and then tournament time comes around, so then you could kind of have a higher success rate of winning. So I think that's a big way of having it. And then there's also the stigma of being the best, right? So if you are the best, you don't want people to know your stuff unless they train with you and stuff like that. So, but I don't know. I haven't been around for that long, but I do believe it kind of comes from, like, competition and stuff. But like I said, even in, like, the last couple of years that I've been around, it kind of seems like it's slowly, like, kind of almost non-existent at least. But yeah, I definitely believe it comes from that that competition kind of background.
Gotcha.
Being the best.
I hear that. That makes sense. Pre-social media, pre-big internet, totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's why for me it's fun to sit down with you. We're homies, similar in age, right? Where some of the professors I've been talking to, the era they grew up in jiu-jitsu, pre-social media, pre-big internet, having to find it, different culture. So hearing these different sides of it is fun for me, and I'm sure hopefully those people listening. Closing it out, outside of jiu-jitsu, what do you do that's good for the soul?
Good for the soul? What do I do outside of this? I eat.
Yeah.
I eat. That's my splurge.
Okay, talk to me about it.
Dude, I don't even eat like great food. I just if I want something, I spend my money on it. That's what. So if I'll Uber Eats, I'll go out to a fancy restaurant by myself. That's what I do. Is I go out sometimes after training, I'll just go out, eat, have a beer, and then call it a day. That's my thing. It's
cool.
I enjoy
a good meal.
Yeah, just a good meal,
Yeah.
Something about just having a good meal.
Is there a specific type of food you like, or what's your go-to?
Asian food. I wish there was more near me. I live a little bit far from where I like to, but Asian food. Korean food's the best for me. I love a good rice and some type of meat. It depends. Bulgogi, kalbi, something like that. Ooh, or pho. Pho is my comfort food.
Okay.
Comfort pho I'll always fall back onto. So yeah, definitely I love those two things. Steak. I'm falling in love with steaks now, man.
Cool.
Steaks are awesome. I'm starting to cook more. I want to find a good steak spot. So if you have any recommendations in Seattle, because I know you're in Seattle.
Yep. I can give you some.
But yeah.
Being that this is Logic, Spanway area, go to 1 or 2 food spots for if people are listening to this and want to check them out.
All right. So if you're willing to make the drive to South Tacoma Way, Mama's Pho. And then even closer, right down the street, is the Zen Ramen and Sushi. I like that ramen place a lot. It's kind of like the cheesy anime place, but the food's actually pretty good.
Cool.
Too. They have a killer sushi burrito. So
that sounds amazing. I love sushi. So now you're speaking to my heart. Oh man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time out of your long day to sit down with me and talk jiu-jitsu, man.
It,
I think it's exciting, and to get your story out there and get more people excited about it. So I appreciate your time, brother.
Thanks,
you, man.
Thank
you.
I knew you were gonna do that.
You knew I was gonna do it.
I knew
That's my thing. Guys, if you've made it this far along, finish the interview, I just want to thank you again for supporting me along this journey, and hopefully you got something awesome out of that interview. I really enjoy doing these, learning so much about life, jiu-jitsu, and everyone has such a unique and interesting perspective. So I hope you got something out of that that you can take with you. And one last reminder, for 10% off on any Jocko Fuel products or Origin USA products, go to jockofuel.com or originusa.com. Support yourself by getting some awesome products, supplements, protein shakes, greens, all that good stuff. It helps support me along this journey, and again, supports yourself and an American-made company. So yeah, jockofuel.com. Check it out, guys. Thank you very much.